What's going on, guys? It's the Draft Nerd, and today we're going to be breaking down the Monday Night Football game where the Falcons surprisingly beat the Eagles in a game that the Eagles probably should have won, 22-21. And we'll get into all the things that happened, but the first thing I want to say is that just the Eagles should have won this game if it wasn't for silly mistakes and just doing things that you didn't need to do. But getting into the game breakdown, both teams played very well on defense, and both offenses struggled in the first quarter. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense couldn't get anything going against that very talented Falcons defense with, the two safeties and Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, Matthew Judon, AJ Terrell. Like, that Falcons defense is very talented, and the Eagles struggled early on, especially without AJ Brown, who missed this game as well. And the same thing on the other side of the ball. The Falcons just kind of picked up where they left off last week and just struggled on offense. The offensive line really struggled, especially in the first quarter, but really throughout the whole game, and they couldn't get anything going. But finally, in the second quarter, the Falcons were able to get a field goal, which brought the game to 3-0. And the first big play touchdown was the Jalen Hurts touchdown to Devontae Smith, which was just a really good throw by Jalen Hurts, obviously, to kind of split the seams and fit that ball into the end zone. Then the Falcons got a couple field goals, brought the game to 9-7, and then this is where the game kind of broke open and got very interesting. This is when Kirk Cousins took that deep shot to Darnell Mooney for that 41-yard touchdown. We didn't get to see much of that last week from the Falcons against the Steelers, just because that Steelers defense is very, very good, and you don't really get much time to throw against the Steelers. But in this game, Kirk Cousins was able to take some calculated shots, and one of those was the Darnell Mooney 41-yard touchdown, and they ended up missing the 2-point conversion, which brought the game to 15-10 Falcons. And then the Eagles answered with a really good drive capped off by, a classic Jalen Hurts tush push. Saquon Barkley was very close to getting a touchdown, and as a guy who has him in fantasy, you're just going to have to get used to Jalen Hurts taking Saquon Barkley's touchdowns away from him. But Saquon Barkley did end up getting a 2-point conversion on a run, which brought the game to 18-15 in the fourth quarter. And then the Eagles were able to stop the Falcons, especially on fourth down, where I believe it was either 4th and 1, 4th and 2, something. It was 4th and short, and they ended up handing it off to Bijan Robinson, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson absolutely stood Bijan up in the hole. There was a little bit of controversy, I guess, after the game. There was a conversation on if C.J. Gardner-Johnson actually purposely took his helmet off while still on the field, which, if you didn't know, is a penalty. And, from replay, it looked like he definitely did take it off. It was falling off, but he definitely, took it fully off. I wouldn't be mad if they would have threw a flag there, which they did, but they ended up picking up. The Eagles kind of convinced the refs that, he didn't take it off and it was an accident. But, I wouldn't have been mad if they threw that flag. But also, that would have been a game-altering penalty. And for a guy just taking his helmet off, I don't think that should have altered the game as much as it could have if there was a penalty thrown there. So, it is what it is. Then the Eagles get the ball back on offense with around 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and then they have a really nice drive, get into the red zone, and I believe it was 3rd and 1, and the Falcons tried to purposely go off sides to kind of get a first down so that way they can use their timeouts and hopefully stop the clock and get the ball back with some time left. And the Eagles are really smart, and I'll give Nick Sirianni props. I'm not the biggest Nick Sirianni guy. I kind of hate the guy as a Giants fan, but it was a smart play. He declined the penalty, ended up going with, I believe it was a tush. Yeah, it was a tush push. They got the first down, called a timeout, and realistically, the game could have been close to 1 right there. I believe it was back-to-back Saquon Barkley runs. Ended up being, I believe, 3rd and 4 maybe, with the Falcons having no timeouts. And instead of running the ball, regardless if you got the first down or not, it would have took 40 seconds off the clock. But instead, Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore tried to get cute and try to pass the ball on 3rd and short with the Falcons having no timeouts. And granted, it was a good play. Like, Saquon Barkley was wide open, and if he would have caught the ball, it would have been a first down and the game would have been over. And as a Giants fan, there was a little bit of joy I got from seeing Saquon Barkley drop the ball. But, really Saquon cost him the game there. If he would have caught the ball, they would have got the first down, game would have been over. He ended up dropping it. The Eagles were forced to, one, stop the clock, which was very key for the Falcons. And they had to kick a field goal, which still made it a 1-possession game. It made it a 6-point game to be exact. And one thing you know about Kirk Cousins is he is able to put together some game-winning drives. I believe he has now 29 game-winning drives, which is like second most currently. And so they gave Kirk Cousins the ball back with a little over a minute left, and what did he do? He drove right down the field. Like, there was no resistance at all from that Eagles defense. And I'm going to put a little bit of blame on Vic Fangio there. I know Vic Fangio likes to play a bend but don't break defense, and he doesn't like to send many blitzes and things like that, but Kirk Cousins just had way too easy of a time marching down the field. He made a couple of deep shots to Darnell Mooney on the sideline, and the Falcons were in the red zone within like 4 plays. They drove 50 yards very, very quickly. And they were in a position to even maybe run the ball a couple times to run the clock out before scoring a touchdown. They didn't end up doing that, which I don't blame them. But Kirk Cousins found Drake London in the end zone, which was just a beautiful route by Drake London. He absolutely torched Darius Slay. It was interesting during Drake London's celebration. I guess he motioned like a gun shooting, which is a penalty, and so that was a 15-yard penalty that pushed the extra point to, I believe, 48 yards. And again, this is to basically win the game. And Younghoe Koo just completely drove the 48-yard extra point, which brought the game to 22-21. Now, this did leave about 34 seconds left for Jalen Hurts to maybe make something happen, and he wasn't able to make anything happen. He threw an interception, a game-sealing interception too. I can't even remember who got the interception. I believe it was maybe Jesse Bates, but anyways, Jalen Hurts threw the interception and the Falcons won the game, and they won a game that they probably shouldn't have won. Like I said, I think Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore just tried to get a little too cute there at the end of the game, and it cost them. Obviously if it would have worked, they would have looked like geniuses, but it didn't end up working, and they kind of looked like fools. And, some of the takeaways I have from this game is, one, in week 1, the Eagles defense was much improved from last year, because last year that was the reason that they kind of had that late season collapse, was just that defense, especially the secondary, was just terrible. And they played really good week 1 against the Packers, that defense as a whole. But in this game, that interior of that defense and just the run defense in general was super, super, super costly. I mean, granted, Bijan Robinson's one of the best running backs in the league, and he's going to get his yards and his explosive plays, but even Tyler Algier was completely eating them alive in the run game, just, lowering his shoulder and getting big runs. I mean, this Eagles defense allowed 6 10-plus yard runs, which that can't happen if you want to be, a Super Bowl contender. And then, like I said, that last drive where Kirk Cousins drove the ball down the field with, 30 seconds for that game-winning touchdown, that secondary just played way too soft. I want to see a little bit more aggression out of Vic Fangio, and I know that, like I said, I know that's not his game, but I'm just not a fan of letting a team drive down the field like they did in that last play. So they still have some questions on that defense. They have the talent there. I mean, Jalen Carter looks like a stud at the defensive tackle position. Bryce Huff hasn't, lived up to the hype that he kind of garnered from Eagles fans when he got traded there, but, I expect him to turn it around. The 2 linebackers, Nakobe Dean probably could have played a little bit better, but Zach Bond is looking like an absolute star. Vic Fangio is turning him into a star at least. And then Quinion Mitchell had a bit of a down game from what he had in week 1. That whole secondary in general didn't play amazing. But overall, that defense just needs to improve. And then the offense just needs to clean some things up. I think once A.J. Brown comes back, it'll be a lot better. And seeing that offense at full power is going to be a scary thing to see with, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley in the backfield, and then Jalen Hurts being that dual threat quarterback is going to be scary. But in today's game, they really missed that alpha target at receiver. I mean, Devontae Smith did the best he could, but when your second option is Britton Covey, who's more of a, return specialist, getting, bubble screens in the red zone, and just being that secondary option, you're not going to be able to win many games like that. I guess Jahan Dawson's, not necessarily cracked the rotation as much as I thought. I thought he would be a very good wide receiver 3 for him, but it's looking like Britton Covey's playing ahead of Jahan Dawson. That might just be because he hasn't fully learned the playbook and things like that, but Jahan Dawson's been a little disappointing so far for me on this Eagles team. And then also that Eagles offensive line, they were able to run block their asses off, and Saquon Barkley was able to get a lot of chunk plays. But the RPO actions, especially with Cam Jurgens at center, they had a lot of penalties where it was like illegal linemen downfield and things like that, just because the RPOs weren't as crisp as they need to be. The Eagles offense has 6 penalties total, which, again, you can't have 6 penalties on offense if you want to be a Super Bowl contender, which I expect all of that to be cleaned up. And, once the offense gels together, I think it's going to be, again, a very good offensive line. It's already a good offensive line right now as it is, even with the penalties. And then moving on to the Falcons side of the ball, they looked a lot better on offense this week compared to week 1 against the Steelers, but I still do think Kirk Cousins need some more time, playing on that repaired Achilles. There was a lot more play action this week, which apparently week 1 it was a part of the scheme to not use play action, which is what Kirk Cousins is great at. Don't understand that type of scheme, but they use play action a lot more, and it was way more effective. But Kirk Cousins' timing looked a little bit off, especially with guys like Drake London and Darnell Mooney, and his arm strength. It looks like he's having to put a lot of power in his upper half, just because I don't think he's fully confident in planting on that repaired Achilles. Which, like I said, I think he'll get more confident as the year goes on with that Achilles. And Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both look very good. That Falcons offensive line probably can still play a little bit better. I mean, they gave Kirk Cousins almost no chance against the Steelers, and they still allowed 13 pressures today, but the difference was that they only allowed 1 sack this week with the Eagles. So there's some bright spots to take away from this Falcons offense, but also some things that they still need to work on. And then that defense is also just very good with guys like Matthew Judon, Grady Jarrett, AJ Terrell, and the 2 safeties. Like, that defense has got a lot of talent, and it's going to be a top 10 defense probably all year long, so you don't really have to worry about that defense much. But yeah, that's going to do it. Like I said, probably a game the Falcons shouldn't have won, but they found a way to win, and I think Kirk Cousins is going to do that a lot, and I think their defense is going to keep them in games to allow Kirk Cousins to do that. So I'm a little bit higher on the Falcons now that I'm able to see Kirk Cousins play at a serviceable level. And for the Eagles, I think once they get A.J. Brown back and that defense has more time to gel, I think they're going to be just fine. It's not time to panic. Like, week 2 was, the week of upsets. Almost every single top contender, like the Ravens, the 49ers, now the Eagles, the Cowboys, like all the top contenders, especially in the NFC, lost. So I wouldn't be too distraught if I'm an Eagles fan. Like, you guys are probably going to bounce back. And it's going to be interesting to see how you guys play against the Saints, who looks like they have a very high-powered offense this year. And with that being said, I hope you liked the video. Consider subscribing and liking. And as always, I'm the Draft Nerd, and thanks for watching.